Ladies and gentlemen, discipline is the bridge between where you are right now and where you want to be. Too often we fall into the trap of waiting for motivation to strike, as if some magical burst of energy will arrive and suddenly make us ready to act. But the reality is, motivation is fleeting, unreliable and unpredictable. It comes and goes like the weather, and if your life depends on waiting for it, you'll stay stuck in the same place for months, even years. What truly carries you forward is not the fleeting spark of motivation, but the steady fire of discipline. Discipline is the decision to move, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Think about it this way. Every successful person you admire has faced mornings when they didn't want to get up early, times when they didn't feel like putting in the effort, and days when comfort seemed more attractive than progress. What separated them from those who gave up wasn't luck or constant bursts of motivation, it was discipline. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It is about making action a non-negotiable habit, instead of a choice you only make when conditions are perfect. The beauty of discipline is that it creates momentum. When you force yourself to take that first step, you activate a chain reaction. The first step may feel heavy, but once you begin, the second becomes easier, and the third easier still. Motivation often follows action, not the other way around. The mistake most people make is waiting to feel ready, but readiness comes after you start, not before. That's why discipline is so powerful. It bypasses the need to feel like it and puts you directly into motion. Discipline is also a skill, not a personality trait. You build it the same way you build muscle, in small, consistent repetition. Every time you choose to act instead of procrastinate, you strengthen the habit of discipline. The first few times might feel difficult, but over time your brain adapts. It begins to associate discipline with results, and results with fulfillment. That fulfillment then fuels the cycle, but the key is always the same. You must begin, regardless of how you feel. Consider this. If you only work on your goals when you feel motivated, you're at the mercy of your emotions. But if you develop discipline, you gain control. You become someone who doesn't wait for the perfect mood, the perfect timing, or the perfect opportunity. You move because it is required, because your future depends on it, and when you take that approach consistently, you begin to trust yourself. You build confidence not from wishful thinking, but from evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself to act no matter what. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is simple but powerful. Discipline creates freedom. The freedom to achieve, the freedom to grow, the freedom to design your life on your terms. Waiting for motivation will keep you in chains. Discipline will break them. And the choice every single day is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, the human brain is wired to respond to progress. Nothing fuels confidence and momentum more than the feeling of a small victory. Yet too often, people overwhelm themselves by focusing only on the big picture, the end result, the massive goal that feels too far away. When you stand at the bottom of a mountain and stare at the peak, it looks impossible to climb. But if you lower your eyes and focus only on the first few steps, suddenly it feels achievable. This is the science of small wins, and it is one of the most effective ways to force yourself into action. Every time you complete a small task, your brain releases a little burst of dopamine, the chemical of reward and satisfaction. It doesn't matter how small the task is. Crossing an item off your list, completing a workout, or finishing that first page of writing sends a signal to your brain: I am capable, I am moving forward. That chemical release encourages you to repeat the action, and before you know it, you've built momentum. The power of small wins lies in their ability to trick your mind into motion. You stop waiting for motivation, and instead you let progress generate its own energy. Think of how habits are formed. No one becomes disciplined overnight. No one transforms their life in a single giant leap. Real change happens in increments. One small action performed consistently creates a ripple effect. Reading one page leads to finishing a chapter. Writing a few sentences leads to finishing a book. Walking for 5 minutes leads to running a mile. Small wins compound, and over time they create massive transformation. The key is to make the task so small that it's almost impossible to resist doing it. For example, if your goal is to exercise daily, don't start by promising yourself an intense 1-hour workout. Begin by committing to 5 minutes. If your goal is to study, don't pressure yourself with an entire chapter. Start with a single paragraph. By lowering the barrier to entry, you bypass the resistance in your brain. Once you begin, the hardest part is already over. Action generates energy, and you'll often find yourself doing far more than the tiny step you committed to. Small wins also rewire your identity. Each time you achieve a little goal, you cast a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. If you finish that glass of water in the morning, you reinforce the identity of someone who takes care of their health. If you read a page before bed, you reinforce the identity of someone who values learning. Identity is not built from big declarations, but from repeated proof, and proof comes from small wins. Ladies and gentlemen, do not underestimate the power of starting small. The mind craves progress, not perfection. By breaking your goals into manageable, immediate actions, you give yourself no excuse to delay. One small win leads to another, and another, until the momentum is unstoppable. Success is nothing more than a series of small victories stacked together. When you embrace this principle, you stop fearing the mountain and start climbing it, one step, one win at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, the path to action is not mysterious. It does not require waiting for a lightning strike of motivation or hoping for the perfect condition. It requires discipline, the ability to move forward even when every part of you resists. And it requires the science of small wins, breaking down overwhelming goals into achievable steps that give your brain the reward it craves and the momentum it needs. When you combine these two forces, you create a system that guarantees progress. Discipline ensures you show up, no matter how you feel. Small wins ensure that showing up feels rewarding, fueling your drive to keep going. Together, they transform hesitation into confidence and inaction into unstoppable motion. The truth is, your future will not be built by a single dramatic moment of inspiration. It will be built by the small, consistent actions you choose every day. And every one of those actions begins with a decision. A decision not to wait, not to delay, but to move. So I challenge you, stop asking for motivation and start demanding discipline. Stop waiting for massive breakthroughs and start stacking small victories. Step by step, win by win, you will climb mountains you once thought were impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, your time to act is not tomorrow, it is not someday, it is